guys. This is Ana Rojas, an illustrator from BA Academy here. And please, we're checking our microphone. We want to make sure that you can hear us. So just go ahead and put plus if you can hear us in the chat area. Okay, great guys. So today we're going to talk about business analyst profile because we get a lot of questions from you guys. What kind of skills and knowledge you need to have in order to start your BA career? So that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. What skills and knowledge areas you need to master in order to become a BA. And I think it's a great topic, and I think that's why you're all here. Just to know you guys better, can you just put what is the location that you're joining us from, and what is your current position? What is your current situation? Are you working as a BA already? Are you working as a developer? Did you just finish your studies? Just give us a little bit of information about yourself.
So hey guys, this is Illustrator. So what we're trying to achieve is just to get familiar with you, who you are, what's your background. And the reason we want to know that is because as we go through the skills and knowledge areas, it just helps us to kind of, just to know what to gear our conversation towards. If you have some experience in business analysis and, maybe you're not a newbie, we'll kind of take a step up approach and give you more of an advanced theory and information. If you just begin kind of your path in business analysis, we'll step down and kind of make it slow.
So when you share this information, and I see some of you are already typing something in. So the way we're going to structure this presentation is we're going to talk about skills and knowledge that you need in order to become a BA, which is business analyst profile. And then at the end of our presentation, we're going to talk about our upcoming 8 weeks boot camp. So if you're interested in that, you can just stay over and see what we have for you in a boot camp. If you're not interested in a boot camp, you can just leave and do the good stuff. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right, guys. So while you type in the chat box section, we're going to go ahead and just introduce ourselves. My name is Illustrator. I'm MBA. I have MBA degree. I'm a PMP certified, as well as a Scrum Master professional. I am a trainer and coach at the Academy, but I also have a full-time job as a senior business systems analyst at Navy Federal Credit Union that is located in Vienna, Virginia. I have over 10 years of progressive experience managing and analyzing different systems, different size projects. During my career, I also worked as the requirements manager as well as a project manager. And currently, again, I'm kind of moving in my business analysis career and as well as helping others to start their career.
Here we go. My name is Ana Rojas, and I'm also a trainer and coach at BA Academy for business analysis. I'm a senior business analyst with more than 7 years of experience, and I worked in different domains. I worked in education, I worked in government contracting, I also worked in aviation domain. And as you all might know, I'm also an organizer of the Washington, D.C. meetup for business analysts and project management networking. But also, me and Ala, we co-organizing a meetup for business analysts for beginners. So that's why we're doing a lot of meetups in person with you guys, as well as webinars. And I see you guys are sharing your information here. So I see that some of you are fairly new to business analysis and already work in operations research analyst.
This is actually how I started my career. I did get my first job as the operations analyst, and shortly after that transition to business analysis. So it's really good.
It's a good place to transition. So definitely it's a good thing for you, and you've been out of school already for 1 year, so it's a great position to start with. Eunice, beginning your path to business analysis. Okay, great, Eunice, I'm happy you're here, and definitely happy to see you at the boot camp, and definitely let me know how your internship is going as well, because you're going to start it soon, hopefully. Kuldeep, I see that you also starting your career. Maybe you can give a little bit more of the information about your background, if you have some training already, or if you have your bachelor degree that is close to business or IT or something like that. I see Manasseh as a project lead for product development. Yeah, that's true. When you do product development, it's a lot of BA work. So definitely, if you want to transition from product development to a business analyst, that's something you can do also. It's a very good position to be in order to transition into BA.
All right, so the next one is Tanner. I hope I pronounced your name right. If not, I apologize for that. From Arlington, Virginia, career transition. My background is a combination in finance and technology. This is a really great background, actually, because there are so many finance companies. I personally work for Navy Federal, which is a finance organization. Nice pay rate, by the way. Want to focus more on tech as a business analyst. Okay, well, this is a good place for you to be tonight. Naga, I'm currently looking to start my career in business analyst. All right, sounds great, guys. All right, so I think we have everybody are just now beginning to look into transitioning. So, this is great to know. It looks like everybody is at the same step in the career level. So let's go ahead and, just dive right into it. We're about 10 minutes after 7. So the presentation today will take about I would say we're going to try to wrap it up in the next hour if possible. Sometimes it will take a little bit extra as we go, and you guys feel free to ask questions as we go. We always welcome questions. We do love to work with your personal situation. If you are, let's say, if we're going through the soft skills or any other aspect of the presentation, as you have a question, say, hey, well, actually, I think I do have this specific skill, or I'm really familiar with this knowledge area. And, if you just want to get a feedback, go ahead and just ask a question in the chat box area, just like you have been typing your comments. We'll be happy to answer those questions.
And also, guys, towards the end of this webinar, we have also bonus for all the participants, and we're going to let you know what the bonus is towards the end of this presentation.
Yeah, for those of you who stay, we would really appreciate you being with us today. So there'll be a little kind of like gift that we really hope going to give you a lot of value. We think you guys gonna like it. So just stay with us till the end. All right, guys. All right, let's go ahead and dive right into it. So the first question we're going to cover is what are the skills that people who are transferred to the business analysis role require. And in the second half of the presentation, we'll talk about knowledge areas. So speaking of the skills, what we usually say is that there are soft skills and technical skills, and most of you have already heard about both, right? Have you? Well, just put a minus sign if you haven't heard about this term before. I don't think we're going to have any minuses, but I'm sure you guys have heard about this a lot. So the soft skills are the skills that we usually carry from one experience to another. Some of us brought those experience from prior jobs, from educations. Those are communication, logical thinking, verbal skills. So something that anybody pretty much has. And some of us have those skills developed a little bit better. Others have those skills not developed as well, but those are really relatively easy to obtain. And the reason why business analysts, a lot of people usually argue with us and say, hey, well, to become a business analyst, you need to get a PhD degree, you need to have masters in technical degree, masters in technical degree. Well, it's all good, and it's all good if you are going towards technical career in business analysis. But what we have been seeing, in our jobs and from our students, is that a lot of people come in with a nice skill set of soft skills, are just as successful in business analysis as those who come in from technical.
So that's why we basically summarize it for you in this beautiful Pareto principle, because I bet everybody heard about Pareto 80-20, right? 80% of action, 20% of actions give you 80% of the results. So here is the same. If you have the soft skills that are needed for BA jobs, like communication, analytical skills, decision-making skills, all these great transferable skills, then you're good. Then you will be able to transition. Of course, you will still need to have some technical skills, but the main thing that you need to focus on is your soft skills. And there's these two main things that you need to do. And of course, in order to become a BA, you need to have your background, you need to have some education, and you need to have some experience in some specific domains. But again, all the basis for your transitioning into a business analysis role is your skills and knowledge areas. So let's just move further to discuss the actual skills.
Okay, so let's go ahead and just look at the soft skills. Right now, you see 6 top soft skills that required from each business analyst. Now, some of you, especially those who might have already been in a technical field, would probably identify a different skill that they think really important. But again, these are the top 6 that we have noticed in our career. So the first one, and we're going to dive right into each one of them, is the communication. So from Latin, it's pretty much means share. It's the act of conveying intended meanings from one entity or group to another through the use of mutually understood signs and semiotic rule. It's actually a term from Wikipedia, but it's actually a great match for this presentation. So we just wanted to make sure that you guys clearly understand that communication is so important for the business analyst. One of the key responsibility of the business analyst is to work with stakeholders who might be our customers, our technical team, our vendors, representatives from different business units. And when we communicate with them, we need to make sure that the information that we share with them, as well the information they share with us, is clear and it's understood, right? So we need to make sure that information they give us. So another thing, for those of you who are not really familiar with who the business analyst is, I should probably have done the introduction earlier. So the business analyst is the liaison between the business and IT. So as a liaison, you are a communicator who connects 2 or more parties or entities, right? So in this case, you can see there are 2 people, and those people are communicated information. And as a business analyst, you do need to make sure, whether it's a written communication or verbal communication, that the communication has been clear and it doesn't get misinterpreted.
Yeah, and misinterpretation is actually a big pain for BAs or any job, right? You notice sometimes on any job that a lot of miscommunications happen. Because why? Because in psychology, that message sent is not necessarily the message that's been received. So that's why it's so important to actually verify if the other person understood you correctly, if you're talking about the same phenomenon, if you actually describing the same thing and you understand the communication the same way. So that's why for business analysts it's very important to have great verbal communication skills and great written communication skills. And let's not forget about non-verbal cues, right? You probably know that also from your studies, that a lot of our communication happens non-verbally. It's just the clues that we're giving people, the way we use our mimic and the way we use our hands to talk and all this other stuff, and the emotions that our face portrays when we talk. All this information, it's also conveyed through non-verbal channels. So as a business analyst, you need to be a great communicator. And I will just to make sure that you're all involved, why don't you just go ahead and give yourself 1 to 10 on communication skills. What do you feel? Do you feel like you're a great communicator? Then give yourself 9 or 10. If you don't feel like you're a great communicator, or maybe you're great verbally but don't like to write, so give yourself between 5 to 8. So go ahead and grade yourself in the chat area. Excellent. I see some people are really, really confident. That's great.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on. So the next skill is the organization skill. So the organizational skill is the ability to use your and other people's time, energy, and resources effectively to achieve desired goal. So this is the ability to organize people when you need to conduct any meetings, when you need to find a timeline on everybody's calendar, just to make sure that all the key stakeholders and all the key participants can make it to the meeting. Again, it's really important to organize all the information and documentation that you plan to bring with you to the meeting. You do need to make sure that everything you have, you are, as the business analyst, one of the great things that especially I like about being the business analyst, I feel like I'm in control. But again, being in control of the project and the requirements process kind of puts me on the spot, right? Because if I under-deliver, or if I underperform, or if I don't organize the meeting in such a way that, to get the most, to make it the most effective, unfortunately, the productivity goes down. So the business analyst does drive the productivity by having good organization. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, organizational skills are just very important, and that means you need to be great at coordinating, you need to be great at time management. So basically, if you mention that you're going to deliver this particular work product by tomorrow COB, close of business, that's exactly what you need to do. So you need to manage your time effectively. And as Ala was talking about the coordination, something that you make sure that you coordinate other people's time, that you let them know ahead of time that you prepare this particular meeting to gather your requirements, or you need to schedule something else. All of this is coordination skills. Also, it's important to organize yourself in terms of setting goals for yourself, setting objectives for yourself, and of course setting some boundaries with people. And that also means that you will communicate the preferred way of communication, right? So if you mention that you will be available over the phone from this time to this time, that's exactly what needs to be. If you said that you're going to be at the desk of this person in 30 minutes to discuss some particular point, that's exactly what you need to do. So it goes with organizing yourself and following your promises, so that's important. And also the administrative activities that you need to do as a BA. Basically, you need to do your status reports for your management on time, you need to keep some records, keep notes, and be diligent with what you promise people. Let's say you just had a meeting and you promise that you're going to send the meeting notes, right, or meeting minutes, and you're going to send it by next day. You don't delay on this. So these skills, it just show people how professional you are, and it's very important to have those skills. And I think it's a good idea. Why don't you think about the organizational skills that you already use at your job right now, and just rate yourself 1 to 10. Go ahead and use the chat area just to rate yourself from 1 to 10. If you're great in organization in all these areas, coordination and time management and setting goals and doing all the different administrative activities, go ahead and give yourself 8 to 10. If you don't feel like you're that great, you have this 5 to 8, a mid-range, and of course, maybe some of you are not great in organization. All right, I see some of you feel like confident about organizational skills, communication skills. Some of you not that confident, and that's okay. Maybe you're great at communication and then your organizational skills are not that good, but that's something you can always work on. I want you to know that you can work on this.
All right, guys, well, let's move on to the next one. So the next one is the problem solving. I think problem solving is one of definitely key skills that the business analyst needs to have, because problems arise almost on a daily basis when you are a business analyst. Just to give an example, when you are dealing with different stakeholders, and different stakeholders have different opinions, it's a kind of like a problem, right? Because you need to make sure that those the solution doesn't get impacted by different stakeholders having different opinions, and you resolve the problem by arriving at one a solution that will address needs and wants of different stakeholders, and kind of like will also address their I should probably repeat myself. I'm going to say, address their needs, because everybody has a need that kind of like drives, or want that drives the change. So you as the business analyst need to identify the problem. Again, to do so, you either talk to the person who initiated the problem or who found the problem. You can also talk to multiple stakeholders, technical people. Well, first of all, you need to understand where it's coming from. What is the root cause, right? Even though root cause is really a big word, but you need to understand, what happened to cause the issue. The second step is you do need to identify all possible solutions. And when you identify all possible solutions, you kind of need to weigh in different benefits, advantages, and disadvantages of those solutions, and think about different departments that might be impacted by those solutions or different people. Step number 3 is, well, you do need to select the optimal solution. One of the ways to select the most optimal solution is to think about, what's the timelines? What is the timeline to market? How soon does this solution need to be delivered? Is it something that needs to be fixed? Is it an emergency fix? Is it something that needs to be fixed really quickly overnight? Or do you have next week or maybe next couple months to fix the issue, right? So all that will serve as driving factors to coming up with a solution. The next step will be create implementation plan. For the business analyst, implementation plan could be just as simple as just a draft of the requirements document, or maybe it's a change request. If it came in as a problem to the existing application, you can simply create a change request form that will list all the requirements that need to be implemented in order to fix the issue. And of course, implement the solution. This is where kind of like for business analysts, once you have created requirements document or a change request document form, you would just send it over to the technical team and they'll take it from there. But this is your responsibility to deliver, to solve the problem and deliver whatever it's going to take for the problem problem to turn into solution and move to the next step.
So problem solving is a very important skill, and Ali just went through all these 5 steps. And guys, in your work that you're doing right now, look at these 5 steps and see which of the steps usually you skip or your team skip or not doing well enough at your project. Is it number 1, that you're not doing your due diligence, really identifying what the problem is, really stating what the problem is? Is it number 2, that you short on identifying all possible solutions and you're just rushing into implementing some kind of solution, not probably the best, but anyway, you're just rushing into implementing it? Is it something that you're not discussing what the optimal solution is, which is step number 3, or it's like you're not really implementing the solution? You discussed everything, you figure out what are the possible solutions, you figure out what's the best one, but nobody is doing anything to actually implement it. So go ahead, just based on what you feel at your job that you were doing, what kind of step they usually miss in your team? Is it
just
1, 2?
Yeah, just really curious to know what's going on in your personal situation. Another really good suggestion before I forget, as we go through this, through different skills, think about which skills, what skills you don't really have as of yet, what skills you would like to build upon. And when you go back to work tomorrow or maybe to school tomorrow, find the ways to develop this specific skill set, whether it's identifying a problem, communication, or any other skill.
Yeah, so I see a lot of people actually saying identifying all possible solutions, and I hear you, understand usually that's the case, because we're rushing into the solving the problem, right? Sometimes we're not even sure if that's the right problem that we're solving, and then if the actions that we're going to do actually is going to solve the problem. But again, this is just the mindset of BA, that you're there to solve the problem, to help to solve problems, right? So guys, even for your little things, little problems that you might have with your manager, please use this frame with these 5 steps to really drive to a solution and implement it, and be this person that actually going to deliver this solution. And again, you can apply it to any area of your life and any area in your career, and you can use this 5 steps in actually solving any problem. So I hope that's going to be useful for you. You can just go ahead and give yourself 1 to 10 on problem solving. So just a couple of more minutes. I think it's good to analyze yourself in your own profile. Give yourself a rating for this one, anywhere from 1 to 10. If you think you're a great problem solver, nothing to learn, give yourself a 10. If you feel like there's something you need to work on, give yourself a number. Excellent. Okay, I think different ranges.
All right, nice. Pretty good.
That's good.
We really hope you learned something from this, and if there is a specific step that you've been skipping, now you see that it's really important not to skip any steps, so helpful for you. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. So the next one, of course, is the analytical skill. So analytical skill, it sounds really complex and really kind of like not really easy to understand. In fact, what this is, and again, we take it from Wikipedia, it's a process of breaking a complex topic or substance into smaller parts in order to gain a better understanding of it. It's always really hard to see, to look at the big picture and kind of like when you try to analyze the big picture, sometimes it's just simply impossible because it's just way too big, right? So let's say if you are looking to even to plan a trip to go somewhere, if all you know is you want to go to, let's say, Italy, you can't really just have a really good analysis or what you want to go see, where you're going to go. But if you clearly know you want to go to Rome and maybe Florence, you already have broken it into 2 smaller areas, and now based on those areas, you're starting to drive more into details and analyzing and identifying what are the things that you want to see. So some of the really good analytical techniques are decomposition of the problem into small pieces. Well, actually, pretty much what we just talked about. Another thing is, a second step would be analysis of each piece, each feasibility. Now, is it a feasible solution? Say, if speaking of the solutions, when you look at the small pieces, you need to understand if it's a feasible solution. What are the opportunities that you might have with this solution? What are the disadvantages and advantages and disadvantages?
And business analysts will use actually different, a whole range of analytical techniques. You're going to use SWOT analysis, you're going to use gap analysis, you're going to use root cause analysis, all these different things. But it's all based on a very basic analytical skills that you're going to have. So if you already have some of the analytical skills and you did some of the work where you were analyzing maybe root cause analysis or some gap analysis, so it's definitely going to help you in transitioning into a business analyst role. So yourself 1 to 10 on your analytical skills. So let's just see how good you're ranking at this skill.
And I think I have a really good example of decomposition, actually, from my example from early this morning, from today. So basically, we have this issue. There is an issue in production. Nobody knows what's going on. And I heard from a few people that it's coming from the database. Others people said, well, we are also using the content management system, which hasn't been updated. So my first approach was talk to different people and understand what's the source for that specific field that's been displayed, that's having an issue. By doing so, I'm trying to kind of eliminate the noise and focus on a specific problem or a specific small piece of the problem, right? And I talked to technical people. I have received confirmation it's actually coming from the backend, from the database, and now we know what the problem is, right? So the next step, and another thing that you'll be seeing a lot in practice, all of this works in conjunction with each other. All the skills all the knowledge areas, there will be, you're not going to see clear skill or like, to them just going to use analytical skills, or to them just going to use the communication skills.
Right.
Like, like this morning alone, after going through analysis, the next thing was actually a problem solving. So actually it wasn't combination with analysis, but also in combination with communication, right?
Yes.
Because the next thing was like, well, here's the problem. By doing analysis, we were able to identify what the problem was.
Right.
And the next thing was, we jumped to the problem solving. What are different options? And there was a short-term option, there was a long-term option, but it was a time sensitive. The issue needs to be fixed by August 22nd. We realized that the long-term solution is not feasible for the next couple months. So, well, obviously it's out of the door, at least for the time being. So the focus is on the short-term solution. We need to get this to the market in the next 3 weeks. So
here's your organizational skills
exactly.
into play, here's your communication skills coming into play, because now you need to actually tell everybody what your solution is and how it should be implemented. Yeah, that's a really good example, just encompassing all the skills that you're going to use.
And here is also decision making, right? Because we were also thinking, like we're looking at the benefits of the long term versus the short term, and while the long term was definitely a better solution, we knew that we had to look at the timeline, time to market, and here's where the decision came in place. So the decision making is the process of identifying and choosing the ultimate solution that is expected to lead to satisfactory results. It's based on the values, preferences, and benefits and beliefs of the decision maker. So our belief was that, and the value was that, our members are being impacted by the issue, and our belief is that the issue needs to be fixed by end of August so that it doesn't again, because we know there is another change coming at the end of August to the business, and if the value, if you don't fix the logic that retrieves the value, members will be affected again. So this is the decision making. So sometimes you kind of have just to be the person, and actually I wasn't the person to make a decision, but number of times business analysts are required to be those people who will put their foot forward and make a decision.
So a lot of times you are recommending decisions or recommending solutions as a BA on a project scale, but again, there's some smaller scale, right? The decisions that you make every day as a business analyst. Should you communicate more? Am I actually over-communicating? And I think there is no such thing as over-communicating as a business analyst. If you can actually send the same information through the email that you just discussed in the meeting, it's excellent, it's great, because that's actually make you a better communicator, and you make sure that you all on the same page. So it's very important that you do those decisions every day on a smaller scale, so you train your decision-making muscle, right? And you be able to suggest the solution and make decisions on a bigger scale, right? Because that will actually help your career for sure. If you make this decision, sometimes you need to make decision fast. Like for example, if your manager is out of office and there's an important email coming to you, just CC to you, but the question is about the timeline or important bug or anything like that. So you need to make a decision to just go ahead and answer, go ahead and research the answer for the client while your manager is out. So that's a decision that you want to make to showcase yourself as a great professional business analyst.
And here are some factors that can actually help you to make a decision. What is the priority? Like in my example, priority was really high, which impacted the timeline and time to market. What's the impact? Is it a small impact? Does it only impact one single user, or maybe just a small group of users? Maybe it impacts half of the population, or maybe it's a large impact. Like in my case, that was a large impact, so we couldn't actually wait for the long-term decision. What's demand? What's demand from other business units? What's demand from the market? What are the resources? Do we have resources available to implement the solution that, going back to the solution, to the problem-solving cycle, those 5 steps, the last one was the solution, right? So we do need resources to make sure we have development team available to implement the fix, but we also have testing team available, right? And also, if it's an emergency fix, do we have other team members to push this through into production? What do the timelines look like? Is it something we can hold on and wait for the next few days, few weeks, months, or is it something we need to get in like overnight?
Yeah, that's a great framework of steps that you can follow in order to make a decision or to improve your decision-making process. And again, it cannot be only project-level decisions. It could be the small decisions that you do every day, and you can still go through all the steps. So I guess decision-making is one of the important skills for BA. So go ahead and rate yourself 1 to 10. What are you going to give yourself for this one?
All right, guys, and while you are rating yourself, we're going to go get and jump to the next one, which might be the last key ones. We have a few small ones. This is negotiation. So negotiation is the process of identifying and choosing an ultimate solution that is expected to lead to satisfactory results. It's based on the values, preferences, and beliefs of the decision maker. So really close to the decision-making process, right? When done effectively, leaves each party satisfied. So as the business analyst, try not to, you're kind of like a servant, I'd probably say servant leader, right? You are leading the project, you are leading the requirements, but try not to take any sides. Try to understand each one of your stakeholders, especially if you're working with the project sponsor, people who represent the business unit. Try to understand where they are coming from. Don't just jump to the conclusion or decision. Talk to each one of them. If you have different parties, they have a different interest and not agreeing on a common solution, try to understand, try to bring them together and kind of negotiate what would be the best solution. So negotiation involves setting goals, objectives, and boundaries. So in this case, what works really well is just to make sure that everybody understands what is the common goal and what are the common objectives we're trying to achieve. What are the boundaries, or in the project world, it's actually also called scope. What's in scope, what's out of scope, right? Because sometimes people forget what was initially discussed to be boundaries for the project. And if one of the parties is actually asking for something that's outside of the boundaries or scope of the project, it's kind of really a simple negotiation at this point, because you can simply state, well, I apologize, but this is out of scope. We can probably address it as a separate initiative or project, but we really shouldn't be wasting any time, spending any more time on this discussion, because it's technically not really in scope for our project. So the next one is rationalizing the range of mutual agreement while maintaining mutual respect, and that's what we just discussed. You should maintain mutual respect to other participants and stakeholders, and kind of like try to come up with the mutual agreement that might work for everybody. So formulating solutions with fair consensus, pretty much just making sure that you treat everybody fairly. Just because somebody bought you lunch the other day doesn't mean that their solution should have a bigger weight than the other person's solution, right? So it's just being fair and respectful to everybody, and of course implementing the solution. When you negotiate the solution, you also need to think about the implementation. And if somebody has a better idea, however, implementation is not feasible, it's not possible, taking into the timelines and resources we have available, well, unfortunately, that solution, that person might kind of lose negotiation. But again, we driving from the goals and objectives. So we need to look at the overall goal and objectives. All right. So, now let's go ahead and just try to think about your prior experience, what negotiation you had to do. Some of us, I know there's a lot of negotiation, I would say, on a day-to-day basis. Those of you having kids, having families, I'm sure you guys have to negotiate all the times, right? Like even vacation sometimes can be negotiation.
Yeah, so where are we going? Are we really spending a week at the beach, or are we staying home?
Right.
Yeah, anyway, so go ahead and rate yourself on negotiation skills. It's 1 to 10 again. And let's see if you're better or worse on this one.
And my professional advice is, and it's really hard actually, I even admit it's even hard for me sometimes, because I'm really opinionated and I'm trying to keep my opinion to myself. But just try to keep a cool head. Try not to take any sides. at the end of the day, you all work towards achieving a project goal. So just try to make sure that you don't really take any sides or don't really promote your own opinion. Listen to people.
All right, I see a lot of people actually rating themselves high.
You're just probably doing better than me. Nice. All right, so let's jump to few others.
So guys, we're gonna soon actually move into over 20% technical skills a little bit, but additional soft skills that are good to have. It's a learning skills. When you're a fast learner, it's a great skill to have as a BA. It's also ability to adjust to a change in situations. It's also having a result-oriented personality and also being a great facilitator. So about result-oriented personality, a lot of managers and a lot of projects are actually looking to hire people who are result-oriented. And I know some people are process-oriented, some people is a mix, but project really benefits from people who are result-oriented, because as a BA, we are negotiating so much, we're facilitating so much, we're analyzing requirements so much, and we are such a bridge between so many different worlds, okay, that it's really important for us to keep the end goal in mind, to keep the end result in mind, and be result oriented, because we have to jump through a lot of hoops to make sure that we get stakeholders into agreement about some particular requirements, about some particular tool, about some particular page, or how exactly is this button going to look on the screen. All these conversations, all these things are going to happen, but what they want from you is to be result oriented and to actually drive something to a specific result. So they really appreciate people who are result oriented. So I'm just curious, you call yourself a result-oriented person? If you can, go ahead and put a plus sign in the chat box. I'm just curious if that's also a good fit for a BA profile. Excellent. I see a couple of people are. What about the others?
And I just want to see, maybe there are some skills that we didn't really cover in this part of the presentation, but you guys feel like you have it and it's really important. At least you thought it was important, and you feel like it's one of your strengths. Just go ahead and put it in the chat box.
Yeah. What kind of other soft skills do you have that you believe is your asset in your transition into BA career? Go ahead and share with us.
Some people are really good salespeople, and it helps them a lot in business analysis, because this is where negotiation comes. This is where communication comes from, right? So you never know. Again, all backgrounds are welcomed in business analysis. Manasa says research, sales. Michael, yep. Yes, I mean, research is a great skill. Nice. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and move on to the technical skills. We're not going to spend as much time on technical skills, just because technical skills are really unique to a company, to a specific company. Now, there are some common technical skills, and we do have actually a checklist we usually use at our workshops, and we're going to use it again at the bootcamp. We do skills assessment, we do soft skills assessment, we do technical skills assessment, and also helps you to see where you are and what else you need to work on. But actually would be happy to share it with you. Let me just go ahead and send you my, well, not mine, but the company email. So if you would like to receive that checklist, we'll be happy to send it to you. Go ahead and just email us, and we'll forward it to you. But let's go ahead and just dive into this branch of technical skills. So the technical skills, also called hard skills, is more on the technology side. Some of the examples of the technical skills are business analysis techniques. Those could be requirements gathering techniques, maybe brainstorming sessions. Those are kind of like specific ways to get the work done. Diagramming techniques is the other really good way, is the other really important technical skills of the business analyst. Some of the diagramming techniques might be UML, which is Unified Model Language. Other diagramming technique, which is really simple, sure each one of you have done it, is just it's a business process flow diagram or process flow diagram. So basically, as long as you have ever done any diagramming in your life, you can confidently say that you have diagramming techniques. Now, have you ever created a diagram? If yes, please go ahead and put a plus in the chat box. I'm not talking about any specific instruments. It could have been PowerPoint, could have been Word document. Maybe you even did it on the just a whiteboard. All right, not as many people, but that's okay. Even back from your school, I mean, think about all your prior experience. When transferring to business analysis world, you guys need, like, this is the reason why we're looking at the soft skills, because you never know where those will come from. Those can come from your school, from your education, from your college, right? So from your volunteering work. So yeah, keep in mind, all that experience. So the next one is traceability. Traceability is more specific to business analysis, and it relates to business, to the requirements traceability and how you trace those to other elements like development units, as well as test cases, design elements. So the next one is really important for business analysts, is the documentation. As the business analyst, you need to know how to write business requirements document, which is the BRD, SRD, system requirements document, user stories. Again, it's really specific to the company. Some companies will have, it also really specific to the methodology that you're using as the business analyst. Some company work follow the waterfall methodology. Others would follow the agile, and if it's agile, most likely you'll be doing the user stories. If it's a waterfall, most likely it will be the BRD, SRD, or functional requirements document. MS Office, again, it's really basic, but if you know your Microsoft Office, if you know the PowerPoint, Word, and Excel, that's pretty much sufficient for the beginner business analyst. Now, you might say, well, I really don't know how to do the SRD, the BRD, but if you know how to use Word or Excel, you have a really good start. SQL is the other pretty good skill to have. It's more the technical side. It's a query language used to retrieve data from the database. It's not a huge requirement for the business analyst, but it's really easy to learn basics of the SQL. So I do suggest that, if you just now transfer into business analysis, just go and watch some video, YouTube videos, how to write simple SQL queries. So the technical tools. So Manasa, we really, I don't want to get hung up on any specific skills right now, just because of the time crunch. We don't really have much time. We still need to go into the knowledge areas. Traceability, I would say, is important, but definitely not something that I would I won't apply to be a position just because I don't really have knowledge of traceability. It's pretty simple. You can just go ahead and either YouTube, just go on YouTube, Google, or you can just simply join us at the bootcamp that's starting 18th of August. We have two different options. We have full bootcamp that comes with the internship, with 2 weeks of training with the internship and the career coaching, but we also have another package that only has business analysis training, which is kind of like a core business analysis training where we go into each one of these aspects, each one of the skills, and cover everything that kind of we're touching upon today. So yeah, I do need to keep on moving forward. So the technical skills could be anything that's not really covered here. Those could be your languages used for your applications like .NET, Java. But the good thing about technical skills is you, as the business analyst, don't really have to have really deep knowledge of those languages, and you won't. You're not a technical guy, a girl. You're not a developer, right? But as long as you have experience, or let's say you are on the mobile side, you're a mobile business analyst, and maybe then you can say that you have technical. One of your technical skills is the knowledge of the iOS versus Android. So it's also one of those, specific industry examples. Or maybe you are in the, maybe you are looking at the cloud computing or security. So this is not a really good example of technical skill. BA tools, which is the next one, is those are instruments used by business analysts. Again, really specific to the company. Some companies like to be on the cheap side and purchase and use free tools. Others really like, Anna is laughing because she's seen it a lot. I've actually also seen it a lot. But some of the really good tools are Jira, used for in Agile to create tickets, projects, change requests. It's more of a traceability, sorry, not traceability, but
requirements
requirements
management
management.
tool, bugs management tool, yes.
Another good one is the Confluence. It's also part of the Atlassian suite, which also includes Jira. There are multiple different tools out there, but it's really, again, once you go to the company, you'll be using what they are using. And sometimes business analysts just use Microsoft Word and Excel. You never know.
And a SharePoint.
Exactly.
Just to store it.
Yeah. So again, I would suggest you guys can go ahead and just research on your own what tools business analysts use, as well as any of these hard skills, or you can just simply join us at the bootcamp. We'll talk about those, and we'll tell you how to learn everything that you need.
So this, guys, was a hard skills overview. So we're not going to rank ourselves for each and every hard skill, but I would like to ask you a question. Out of all those hard skills, what do you think is your strength? Which one is actually a good one for you? I mean, which is the one that you know you're good at? Maybe you know some BA tools. Maybe you're actually great at Excel, or maybe you know some programming languages, or you're great at different software methodologies. We just want to have a feel of what do you think you're good at and your hard skills.
Yes,
share.
Yeah, please go ahead and share, because another thing is, and even if you're not confident, please go ahead and just put it in the chat box area. Let us take a look, and we'll give you feedback. Maybe we'll take a look and say, wow, you're almost there, you know so much, because sometimes people know so much and they just don't know what they know. And yeah, go ahead and please share with us. We'd really like to give you feedback. Or maybe something that I've mentioned here, maybe something looks really familiar, and you're like, wow, I actually know this, and I didn't realize this is something used by business analysts.
All right, somebody just seen they're good at documentation.
All right, Excel,
that's a
Office,
good skill to have.
SQL. All right, great. Excel and other Microsoft Office. All right, that's pretty good start.
Yeah, that's a good start. That's basically, if you have the skills, you have a pretty good profile to start the job, to transition into a BA role. Okay, guys, we're going to move to knowledge areas. If you do have any questions about the skills, soft or hard, go ahead and ask in the chat box.
And another thing is, before we move on, I just want to mention, the best way to gain new skills is by looking at your existing situation. Look where you are, what opportunities you can have, well, let's say you are, you just went through this presentation. Now you realize that you need to have pretty good understanding of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and you never used PowerPoint before in your lifetime. And maybe there is an opportunity for you to start using it at your work. That way you can start developing the skill early in the process before you dive into some official training or you get your first job as the business analyst. And by doing so, by the time you actually get a job, you will have the skill developed. So, always try to find an opportunity to master a specific skill set in your current work environment.
Yes, definitely work on your skills every day. Try to do it in your current job. Even if you, for example, don't use any diagrams in your current job, go ahead and do it for yourself. Do some process flow diagrams and things like that. So work on your skills. Also, try to find a volunteer experience, or try to find an internship. Like, for example, in our bootcamp, we're actually giving our students the opportunity to go to the internships, so you can work on any of those hard skills and soft skills while you're actually performing a BA duties. So definitely, this is a great benefit for our students who are going through our bootcamp, is that they have opportunity to practice all this in a real life scenarios when they go through the internship.
All right. I actually do see I see a question from Kuldeep. He is asking if it's necessary to learn any type of prototyping mockup tool. So it really depends on where you are geographically. So we have a lot of students from Europe, and in Europe they usually don't have clearly established processes and roles. So they do have a lot of business analysts who they also want to have some prototyping skills and be able to build up mockups and wireframes. We are located in Washington, D.C. in America, and if you are in the United States, usually again, you will be looking to work at some more advanced companies where they have different, really clearly defined roles and responsibilities. So in the United States, you are not required to know any prototyping tools and mockups because there are usually user experience UX teams, user experience teams that will be doing prototyping and wireframes.
Yeah, basically you're going to have either the whole UI UX team or at least one person who will be doing prototyping and mockups. Again, for yourself, only it's basically extra. If you really want, you can use just regular paint and just use it as a mockup tool, and just if you really want to show something basic. But again, it's not a requirement.
I'm just going to give out really cool tip. I don't know if I'm going to like this because this is actually from the bootcamp. But one of the really cool things that we usually do at bootcamp is the market analysis. So we look at the positions that exist out on the market in your region, geographical place, or the place that you're targeting, and do analysis of what is being asked, right? The best way to find out is to go and ask. So go ahead and just look at those open positions and see what you think you might need to transfer to business analysis. And if prototype and mockup skills is one of them, then the answer is definitely yes.
That's one of the techniques that we do in our bootcamp, definitely, because as a business analyst, you basically there on the market, so you have to be to have a profile. You have to have profile of a business analyst that the market needs. And of course, market needs change from state to state, from country to country. So definitely, you need to do that research as well.
All right, guys. So let's go ahead and dive into our knowledge area. Naga, what are the most useful UML diagrams? Again, we don't have time right now to talk about that. In any domain, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't depend on the domain. It's just those things that the business analysts use. There are a few of those, and we are covering those at the bootcamp. Again, apologize, we really need to kind of keep on moving right now. So let's take a look at the knowledge area. So the knowledge area is something that represents a complete set of concepts, terms, and activities used by a person in a specific professional field to achieve organizational objectives. So this is basically, from business analysis perspective, something that you need to have really good competences. You have to have really good knowledge of concepts, terms. You need to know how to do your activities so that you can perform as an experienced business analyst in a specific knowledge area. So take a look at the specific knowledge areas that are out there for business analysts. And those are planning and monitoring, requirements planning and monitoring, elicitation and collaboration, requirements lifecycle management, strategy analysis, requirements analysis and design definition, and solution evaluation. So another thing I want to mention is, just like we talked in the skills section, in a single day, you might be using like 10 or 15 different skills. Same here. There are a lot of times, you will be going through a specific phase. So even though these are clearly defined, you might be interacting with your stakeholders while, working on the change request, while identifying the strategy, while doing, defining the solution. So all those knowledge areas, number of times, are used interchangeably. They kind of like all collaborate with each other, and don't really expect that you will see each one of those knowledge areas in a clear way.
Okay, and I guess we're going to start talking about each particular area separately. So we're going to talk about planning and monitoring. And of course, before you do anything, including your business analysis activities, you have to plan it, right? And once you plan how you're going to gather your requirements, you have to monitor your requirements or business analyst work, right? So in planning and monitoring, there's several things that you need to do. You need to plan a business analysis approach, and then you need to make sure that you plan how exactly you're going to do business analysis on this particular project. Are you actually going to collect high-level requirements first, and how exactly you're going to collect it? What are your stakeholders there? How are you going to work with them? How are you going to engage your stakeholders? How often you're going to have your meetings with them? Are you going to involve only business stakeholders and you, or are you going to have the sessions where you're going to have all your development team in there as well? Also, your business analysis governance. So how are you going to govern these activities, your meetings, your meeting notes, your requirements, how you're going to write them? Is it going to be user stories? Is it going to be use cases? Are you going to write business rules for this project or not? So all these questions are answered at the stage of planning and monitoring. And of course, overall information management. Where are you going to store your requirements when they're written? How are you going to get approval or sign off from your stakeholders, from your business users, right? So all those questions you're going to be asking yourself, and of course your manager, when you're planning your business analysis approach.
Right, and you know, for most of you, especially if you just now transition to the business analysis world, planning is, you know, this will look really kind of like scary and really not clear how to exercise, right? One of the really good tips on how to kind of like dive into the planning when you just now starting new as the business analyst is, you know, see what's already happening in the organization. What are the existing processes and procedures, and you know, try to use those as the baseline. So this is definitely one of the first steps that you need to look at. And like Anna said, it definitely comes with the experience. It comes with some training, with some practice, but it is a really important step.
So we're also going to talk about the most important part of this knowledge areas in our bootcamp. So we're basically going to teach you how to identify your stakeholders, how to analyze them, and how to plan your business analysis approach. All this information is actually going to be in our bootcamp. And I hope you did some of this planning and monitoring and some other jobs, but that's something you need to look forward when you transition into a BA role.
So the next knowledge area is elicitation and collaboration. Again, more collaboration, which is one of the skills, right, that we discussed. So this knowledge area focuses on prepare for elicitation. Requirements elicitation, unlike requirements gathering, is really kind of a unique and distinct approach to gathering requirements, because you know, requirements are not just mushrooms, or you know, not just berries that you can easily gather, right, or collect.
How we actually had a previous webinar where we say why requirements gathering is not like picking apples. Yeah, they're not just apples, they're not just growing trees. You would need to elicit them, you would need to work on it, and you would need to use elicitation techniques in order to get together the requirements that is needed to actually get to real business needs, not exactly what the stakeholder is stating the first time you ask them, what do you need? Because it could be that you can ask your stakeholder, what do you need? And they can just say, I want the moon, right? But then it's not clear what kind of moon this person is talking about. Do they want to actually, you know, launch a shuttle to the moon? Do they want to send a person to the moon? Do they want to just a toy that is just the moon? I mean, it's just a lot of questions. When you first ask your stakeholders what they want, it can just sound like moon or a moon, and it's not clear what exactly they want. So all the solicitation techniques and business analysis techniques come into play when you're trying to figure out what exactly the requirements are. And that's also part of our bootcamp. We actually discuss in requirement solicitation techniques and all this like funny cases, and we do case studies where you actually learn how to do the elicitation and how to figure out what is the stated requirements and what are the real requirements. So what kind of requirements you need to write and how do you need to write them. So basically, preparing for elicitation and conducting elicitation, for that you need to know what kind of elicitation techniques are out there and make sure that you use them successfully and you can actually figure out what elicitation techniques to use. And of course, when you your elicitation activities, you need to confirm with your stakeholders that the results that you got is exactly the same what they meant for their business needs and for their business requirements. And of course, you need to communicate to your team, to your development team, to your testing team, this information that you got from the requirements elicitation. And of course, you need to manage overall stakeholder and business collaboration, because it's very important. You are this bridge between business and IT, and your goal is to stay neutral. Your goal is to stay objective towards the objective and the goal of the project. And you want to make sure that whatever you create requirements is actually the true requirements, the true business needs, and whatever solution you're going to deliver is actually going to meet this need. So that's a very important skill, and that's a very important knowledge area on how exactly make sure that the requirements actually portray the business needs. That's a very important knowledge area that you guys need to know going into a BA role.
So guys, we do understand that, you know, most of this is so new to you and probably never heard about it, and it's really kind of complicated, might be a little bit confusing. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible. Again, we will be going more into details at the bootcamp. We'll be covering each one of those knowledge areas. We'll be practicing it with you. We'll be giving you checklists and worksheets, so just to make it easier for you once you actually go get your first job as the business analyst, as well as you go through the internship with our business partners. You know, but in the meantime, please feel free if you have any questions. We don't have time to go into details, but feel free to ask some generic questions. All right, so the next one is the requirements lifecycle management. So this one includes the traceability, the requirements traceability. How do you trace requirements to, let's say if you work in the functional requirements, how do you trace requirements to the high-level requirements or business requirements? How do you derive technical requirements? How do you trace technical requirements? How do you trace your requirements to technical elements, specific functions in your on the backend, database in the backend, fields on the backend, and so forth. Also, how do you maintain requirements? You know, what if there are any changes, or how do you pretty much maintain requirements on documentation? Also, how do you prioritize requirements, right? There are a lot of requirements, different requirements coming from different stakeholders. How do you set up priorities? Also, how do you assess requirements changes? You know, what is the change versus what is not a valid change? You know, you also need to be able to identify how to understand what to accept as a change, what needs to be rejected, you know, what can be simply deferred as change, and what is the change requirements change process. Also, requirements approval. Every time there is a change, every time a new version of the requirements documents needs to be created, especially after the baseline has been established, it needs to go through the approval process. So all of that is the requirements lifecycle management, and all of that you as the business analyst need to be aware how to conduct and how to perform these activities. All right, guys, so the next one is the strategy analysis. Strategy analysis might be on a higher level, or it might also be on a lower level. So you as the business analyst will perform strategy analysis in terms of defining the current state of the issue, as well as analyzing the current state of the issue or the project. You will also be defining the future state, and this is where as is to be technique comes in place. You will also be assessing risks on the project, and of course you will define a change strategy, right? So what strategy needs to be implemented, or what strategy does the project need in order to implement the change or the project? So again, strategy analysis is not something really very typical to business analysts, but this is part of your day-to-day operations, and this is something to keep on the back, you know, kind of on the back burner, and you know, in case you see any potential risks, you definitely need to look into different opportunities, define future state, and kind of keep the strategy in mind.
Mm-hmm. And the next knowledge area, guys, is requirements analysis and design definition. So you get your requirements, you know how to manage them. Now you need to analyze them, right, and figure out what are the design options, what kind of solution we're actually going to give our users, right? So you need to specify your requirements, basically document them, and you need to model your requirements. So maybe it's going to be some diagrams, maybe it's going to be some prototypes, something in order for you to model the requirements, how they're going to look in the actual application. You also would need to verify your requirements, you need to validate your requirements, you need to know how to do this, what are the techniques out there in order for you to do that. And also it's important to define your requirements architecture, how exactly this particular feature is going to look. Maybe you're not going to go all the way down to a database, and you're probably not. You're not going to go to database architecture or things like that. It's more into information of how exactly your UI changes is going to map to database changes, this type of things you might work with. Or sometimes you will be only working with the UI changes as a business analyst. So it's like a lot of different options that could be here in this particular point. Also, you need to figure out how the design, how the UI are going to look like. A lot of times, as we already discussed, you will have the UI UX team that will design and help you to show it to the clients before it's actually get implemented in the application. Sometimes you would need to have a basic prototyping techniques to show as a BA, but a lot of times you will have UX UI guys, and of course you also would need to analyze what kind of value you're bringing with actually bringing this particular feature to the client, and what's the value of the recommended solution of this upgrades that you recommended customer to do in order to fix to actually meet their business need. So all this, your analysis, your requirements analysis goes with all this.
And you'll be surprised, but number of times all the business wants, or all technical team wants, is just to implement and just close the bug, close the project, close the change request. But you, as the business analyst, it's so important for you to talk to the customers, to collaborate with the customers, going back to the prior knowledge area, to understand what are the true customer needs, right? What do they want? What is the value that they're trying to achieve? And the thing is, if the client or your customer is not happy with the value delivered, well, first of all, they won't be returning customers, right? They might not ask you to work on another project, and of course, you're going to keep the customer and the business not satisfied. So make sure you use the business analyst, identify the value, the actual value, and help the business to achieve what their needs are. So the next one is the solution evaluation. So this one is pretty much, this is the knowledge area that will help you to understand that the solution that you have selected is the right one. So this is where you go into KPI, key performance indicators. You also measure solution performance. You also, like one of the things is number of times working with different business units. You'll hear a lot that the reason for this project is to minimize call volume at the call center, and they might even throw out some numbers to say, well, currently we spend $100,000 in cost because this equals this calls that we receive for this specific feature equals in, let's say, 1,000 hours custom service hours, and by implementing this feature we will be looking to minimize that cost. So you'll be hearing a lot of those measures, and your solution evaluation is to minimize that call volume and save the company, did I say 100,000, I think? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so X number of money, of dollars, so that they can put it towards something else. So also I'll assess solution limitations, and we kind of touched on this before, but if there are any specific limitations, if your technical team says, well, it is a great solution, but unfortunately we just don't have the infrastructure, or we don't have resources, right? So this is a limitation. So this is something that definitely has to warn you, because you as the business analyst should not accept and should not work towards the solution that's technically not feasible. Also, assess enterprise limitations. If there are any issues in the enterprise level on, let's say, I'm just going to take another great example of the customer service people or the call center. So number of times when implementing or integrating with third-party third-party systems or applications usually have their own call center. And one of the really good questions to ask is, well, do we expect the third-party call center to handle our customers, customers calling about the specific issue, or do we expect our call center to address those issues? And like one of the answers I heard at some point was that, hey, we're gonna give your people, your call center, access to our systems and applications so that they can directly look into the system and resolve the issue. But at some point I heard, well, we don't even have we don't even have the system yet, which kind of goes up to the solution limitation. There is no system in place, but also maybe our call center doesn't have capacity. There are we'll only have X number of people, and this is a feature that's going to require add more hours. And right now we just don't have capacity on the resource side, so it becomes enterprise limitation. Also recommend solutions to increase solution value. Recommend actions to increase solution value. What actions do we need to take to increase the value? Do we need to introduce new policies and procedures? Do we need to change existing policies and procedures? So this is everything, this is everything that you as a business analyst need to consider.
Maybe you need to create a new training manual, or maybe you need to go to create the tutorials, things like that. That's all about the solution evaluation. So basically, that's it for the knowledge areas, guys. If you have any questions about the knowledge area, right now is go ahead and ask your questions.
And any questions? So we will be wrapping up with the main presentation, which was about business analysis skills and knowledge areas. We did promise to give you a gift for those who will stay till the end. So we are going to go into a bootcamp presentation, which will take us I would say about 10 to 15 minutes, probably about 10 minutes. We're going to try to wrap it up on time by 8:30. But the benefit, or I guess the gift that we actually discussed with Anna, we thought will be one of the best, is we would like to offer, of course, on the top of this of the checklist that I promised to send you, the checklist to do self-assessment for knowledge and skills. Just a reminder to request the checklist. Go ahead and just send us an email to support@it-bacademy.com. But the gift that I would like to offer you guys is a personal career coaching consultation. It's a 30 minutes consultation where you can ask us any questions. Even I think Manasa had a question about, or actually maybe somebody else had a question about specific UML diagrams. We'll definitely have questions to kind of dive into those questions, time to dive into those questions. So all you have to do is just send us a short email to support@it-bacademy.com. Just say, hey, I would like to request my free half-an-hour consultation. We'll be able to get on the call with you. So the only request we have is Anna and I, we are extremely booked. We have a lot of consultations and coaching calls and trainings coming up. We have students overseas. We kind of lead in both US market as well as overseas market, so we're pretty much booked up. So a couple of things we want to ask you is to make sure you request the consultation within the next couple of weeks, because we just we just won't have time if you get back to us in the next month or so. And second,